Hi, I'm Sandy Canally, the founder and CEO of the Compliance Team. The Compliance Team is a nationally recognized CMS-approved healthcare organization who offers accreditation to pharmacy, DMEPOS, and clinics throughout the country. I founded the company back in 1994, approximately 22 years ago, to focus on what matters most to the patients and create a program that was operations driven, so therefore easier to implement across the provider continuum. Actually, years ago, 22 years ago to be exact, in 1994, I formed the Compliance Team because the system for accreditation needed improvement. Everybody thought of accreditation as difficult, as costly, and not really focused on day-to-day practices. So we formed the Compliance Team's Exemplary Provider Accreditation program around two beliefs. The first is that every patient deserves exemplary care. And every provider should be able to achieve that level of care through focusing on what matters. It doesn't need to be costly. It doesn't need to be difficult. If you focus on safety, honesty, and caring. Our view at the Compliance Team is if you focus on those three things, and all of our standards and all of our programs are built around safety, honesty, and caring. Because at the end of the day, these are the things that matter most to patients and their family. And if you excel in these three things, what else matters? The rest is just minutia. When we first created the Exemplary Provider programs for the Compliance Team, we were first evaluated by North Carolina Blue Cross Blue Shield. They actually took it to the Accreditation Credentialing Committee. It was vetted, the standards were reviewed, our process was reviewed, and we were approved as an accreditation organization for DME, which was the first program that we created in 1999. The start of the Medicare Modernization Act impacted DMEPOS across the country, and CMS chose agencies to meet and or exceed their quality standards. The Compliance Team was one of the agencies, accreditation programs, that was named back in 2006, which means that we have deeming authority to accredit DME providers that need a billing number, maintain a billing number for Medicare. Now, as time moved on, back in 2014, we had deemed status for CMS for Medicare in rural health clinics as well. What that means is that we're deemed and recognized by Medicare to accredit both Part A, which is the hospital side of CMS, as well as Part B providers. The Compliance Team's Exemplary Provider Accreditation Program is different in that it is operations-driven, operations-based. So it basically deals with the provider's everyday practices, whether they're a community pharmacy, they specialize in DME, they have infusion, they have specialty. We zero in on operations. Now, some of our competitors feel that operations has nothing to do with accreditation. It has everything to do with accreditation. How you hire, how you orient, how you train, what type of system you have in place and policies and procedures for how you're dispensing, how you're handling the pharmaceutical management, equipment management, all of those things. And most importantly, how you deal with the patient, how you serve the patient, counsel the patient, and follow up with the patient. It's based on being patient-focused, but operations-driven to your everyday operations and practices. Now, one of the things that the compliance team does is offer a different business model than most accreditation organizations. What I mean by that is when you sign up with the compliance team's program, you're assigned an advisor. That advisor actually walks you through the process and the standards over a series of orientation webinars. What I mean by that is, okay, you have somebody spearheading it in your pharmacy, and our advisor is going to set up calls to discuss different parts of the standards. So for instance, today is HR. So we're going to talk about what needs to be in the files, what you need to do to meet the requirements. And this happens each step of the way. You get self-assessment checklists, you get templates for policies and procedures that if you don't already have the policies that are required by the standards, at least we give you the template to then adjust to your day-to-day practices. Now, once you're ready, you've completed all your preparation work, a different accreditation advisor comes on site to verify and validate that you meet the quality standards, the compliance team quality standards. You need to score 90% or better in order to do that. Once we're on site, when we're on site, we're gonna do a tour, we're gonna look at policies, we're gonna interview patients, we're gonna interview staff. At the end of the day, we're gonna tell you what areas are in need of improvement and how well you did with complying with the standards. But you know what? That's not the end. We look at it as the beginning, because after you become accredited, we're the only accreditation organization that then allows you to submit your patient satisfaction data into our patient portal so that it can be aggregated. You can use it as reports to payers, to referral sources, to your company, to your employees, to your customers. And not only are you going to see your results, but you're going to see it benchmarked against the national database that has 4,000 providers' data points in there. And we've been collecting this data since 1999. This is value-added services. But at the end of the day, you become an exemplary provider, not just accredited. First of all, let's point out that the length of time that it takes you to prepare and implement the standards in the Exemplary Provider Accreditation Program are all about you. Because some providers may have had things in place and don't need to put in a lot of extra work to implement it. Okay, that said, the typical and average amount of time that it usually takes is 4 to 6 months for a small to medium-sized pharmacy. Now, that said, I would say the average amount of time it takes on a weekly basis to focus in on getting policies, getting forms, making sure that the process matches the policy is about 4 hours a week. Everybody can dedicate 4 hours a week to accreditation that's going to standardize your processes, streamline your operations, and validate your quality. Our Community Pharmacy Accreditation Program, Exemplary Provider for Community Pharmacy, is based on day-to-day practices in the pharmacy. For years, since the Medicare Modernization Act implementation, most pharmacies only were accredited for this much of their business, meaning the DMEPOS. In creating the Community Pharmacy Program, we're focusing on what you do best and what you're known for throughout your community. Most pharmacies, whether you're in Flatbush Avenue in New York City in Brooklyn, or you're in Sweetwater, Tennessee, you're community leaders. because of what you offer the patients in the community. They come to you for advice. We're focusing in on that. We're focusing in on how you counsel your patients, how you follow up with your patients as it relates to medication therapy management, as it relates to immunizations. Are you offering immunizations in your pharmacy to the folks that you serve in your community? Are you doing any other kind of outreach? How are your patients adhering to the medications that are ordered? And how you manage your pharmacy overall, from the time the script comes in to how it's handled, how it's labeled, how it's stored, how it's dispensed. But most importantly, how you help Mrs. McGillicuddy, who lives down the block from you and you've been serving Mrs. McGillicuddy for the past 40 years. That's what community pharmacy is all about. And that's what our accreditation as an exemplary provider focuses in on, what you do best in your community every day. Yes, as a matter of fact, we were one of the initial accreditation organizations that had a specialty pharmacy accreditation program back in the early 2000s. One of the things that we did back then is, including what we do now, is it's part of the umbrella of pharmacy services. So back then, specialty drug was really not the carve-out that it is today. It was incorporated into pharmacy standards that covered specialty, that covered infusion, that covered complex patient management. All of those same things that we look at today in a specialty pharmacy accreditation program were included in the initial program that we offered in the early 2000s. Today, one of the things that you need to understand is when we talk about accreditation for specialty, we're still including universal standards which cover corporate compliance, administration, HR, equipment management. Other accreditation programs may focus on just the specialty drug and how that's handled. Again, we need to look at the whole picture, because if you're not doing day-to-day operations correctly, what we look at is operational excellence leads to clinical excellence. And that's the best way to look at it for specialty drug as well. Because if you don't have the right personnel that's trained appropriately, that knows how to handle these drugs in a special way, that knows how to follow up with the patient according to the drug manufacturer's protocol, the clinical protocols that are set out with specialty drugs, it's not looking at the whole picture, and you're not going to be successful as a specialty pharmacy. The two most important things about specialty drug pharmacy accreditation are the special handling of the drug itself, which of course is always driven by the drug manufacturer. You know, how it's handled, how it's dispensed, if it needs to be shipped, you know, does it need to be refrigerated? What special handling things are part of the procedure that you need to adhere to? And then what happens with the patient? These patients have complex disease entities. That's why they're getting these specialty drugs. That means that you have to do more follow-up. You have to follow up with the prescriber. There needs to be that continuity of care with the prescriber as well as the drug manufacturer, and what type of measures and data you're collecting to support you as a specialty drug pharmacy. Actually, we have quite a lot that covers the full spectrum of pharmacy. It's all under pharmacy services. So you have community pharmacy, which includes Part B DME. It's just rolled right in. Again, we're focusing on day-to-day practices. It includes non-sterile compounding. You know, some of you you're not really a compounding house, but you do little bits here and there of traditional compounding, like magic mouthwash. We're looking at that as well. And then if you specialize in doing infusion or doing specialty drug and long-term care, I have to say that there's a big growth area in the long-term care arena. Whether you have long-term care facilities such as skilled nursing facilities, assisted living, board and care, group homes, this is all incorporated into the long-term care standards and what you need to do to comply with those standards. Overall, under pharmacy, we cover the entire pharmacy space. And one of the things moving forward is the addition of patient-centered medical home, connecting the primary care provider to the community pharmacy and actually communicating in that continuity of care aspect of providing care in your community. We chose the Exemplary Provider as a brand because it's all about every patient deserves exemplary care. There are many, instances where we were advised to, why don't you have another level of accreditation program that's less than exemplary. I like to refer to it as the just getting by provider. But how do I tell Mrs. McGillicuddy that she doesn't deserve exemplary care? We're not going to do that. One of the other reasons we named it the Exemplary Provider was because there already are many gold seals of approval in accreditation organizations. There's only one Exemplary Provider brand, and that's under the Compliance Team. The typical cost associated with the Compliance Team's accreditation programs for pharmacy average between $4,800 and $7,600. That relates to a small provider with one location. The $4,800 is for community pharmacy, which again includes that basic DME, if you have a Part B DME number for Medicare, as well as the traditional non-sterile compounding. Focusing in on the cost, you need to focus on what you get for that money, what you get for that cost. You get the help of the advisor up front with taking you through the series of conference calls, so there's no need to hire an outside person to interpret standards or to show you the way to comply with the standards. The compliance team helps you with their advisor. We give you the checklists. We give you the templates so that you then can adjust it to your organization. We then have other advisors that come on site to verify and validate that you meet the standards and include the benchmarking for patient satisfaction survey, all as part of the price. It's all value added, and it's all about value today, value-based purchasing. You can't do any better than at the Compliance Team. Most pharmacies think that they don't need to get accredited unless they're doing the Part B DME, which of course is mandated. It's about validating your quality. In this age of the Affordable Care Act, of value-based purchasing, and where MACRA and MIPS and all about alternate payment models and proving what you do to the payers, well, the way to do that is through accreditation, because an outside agency like the Compliance Team and the Exemplary Provider accreditation programs validate that quality. So you can show proof, you can show your scoring, you can show your patient satisfaction data that's been aggregated by your third-party accreditor. It's about value, but it's also about standing out in the community as the community leader, as the champion for your patients. You're going to show that your quality has been validated through this accreditation, through the Exemplary Provider brand. You're setting yourself apart from other pharmacies in your area that are not. At the end of the day, what people tell me in terms of our customers is that it really did two things. Number one, it uncovered areas in need of improvement that they did not know existed. and their processes have been standardized. So they've been able to increase productivity, and increased productivity certainly relates to a better bottom line. One of the ways that the Compliance Team's Exemplary Provider Accreditation Program impacts patient care is because we're focused on day-to-day operations and improving what matters most to the patient, which is safety, honesty, and caring. So we actually have the pharmacy and the standards that relate to the pharmacy services related to standards that cover safety, honesty, and caring. So it goes back to what else matters, the rest is minutia, but it's around operational excellence leading to clinical excellence because of that focus on the operation, because of the focus on getting qualified, trained, credentialed people in your pharmacy to take care of dear Mrs. McGillicuddy, making sure they're knowledgeable and they're up to date on all the things, all the drugs, all the treatments, everything that they need to know to give her the best possible service and care. Also, with focus being on patient satisfaction and improving outcomes, because of the fact that the Compliance Team's program includes that benchmarking, it allows the provider to look at patterns that have developed with patient satisfaction where they've said, no, we didn't get enough training. We didn't understand the use of the drug. We didn't have enough time with our pharmacist. We didn't give the pharmacy all of the drugs that we were on. It really allows the pharmacy to identify the areas that perhaps their staff need to better focus on. It's all about continuous quality improvement, but most importantly, it's all about the patient. I think in the past 5 years, the pharmacy has already started to evolve through things like medication therapy management, medication adherence, and spending more time with the individual patient with trying to meet their needs as it relates to the pharmaceuticals that they are taking. The pharmacist role is going to expand even more into the role of a provider with prescribing. It's happening all over the country. And as we move forward, I believe it's going to increase even more. Now, what does that mean? That means, first of all, Mrs. McGillicuddy or Mrs. Smith or whoever, I like to use Mrs. McGillicuddy, goes to see and visit the pharmacy much more often than they do the primary care doctor. I mean, there's statistics that say that. They're comfortable with their pharmacist in their local area. So the role of the pharmacist is only going to grow over these next few years, with value-based purchasing, with alternate payment models, with the focus on star ratings. Again, it's about what the community pharmacy is doing. The community pharmacist is the leader in the community. So with this more accountability comes responsibility, and accountability to payers, accountability to referral sources. And how is that best related is through accreditation, because we can validate that they're doing the right thing as it relates to the patient, meeting quality standards that relate to day-to-day practices. And at the end of the day, that they're exemplary as exemplary provider accredited pharmacies.